Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is King, and today will be a reading vlog of this novel by James Patterson, First to Die. Now, I recently discovered that James Patterson is actually just a pseudonym where different authors can just like publish their books under, and I think this one's name is David Burnett. I really like if you read if you open any James Patterson book, you'll see this kind of blog there. And there was one James Patterson book I got last 2 years, 2023, and I regretted buying it. It was such a waste of my time because of how it lacked substance. It was a detective kind of procedural kind of story, where you follow a detective solving mystery murder and all of that. And when I got to the end, it was just underwhelming. I was like, what is going on? So I don't know why the following year I got this book. Like, why did I get it? I guess the cover was just attractive to me. And then sometimes, when you go to a shop with a lot of options, you feel like you just have to get some just for vibes. You can just get a book for vibes, and that's what this book is for. James Patterson First to Die, that's the title. And come to think of it, the fact that I finished reading this book before I completed the Dean Koontz title I have is saying something about me. So anyways, I just want to talk about this book because there's some it was a ride from start to finish, and the way it ended, there was so many unexpected things. It felt like all this like hastily put together ending, but also something that was very, very annoying to me was that the book made me cry. The story made me cry, and I was like, why am I crying for this kind of book? But I cried. I could not help myself. It was something tragic that happened. So, anyways, let me just introduce the plot of the book to you. There is a serial killer going around killing brides and grooms across San Francisco, and the detective put in charge of the case, or the detective in charge of the case, is a woman. This book lets us know from the very first start that this is a woman. Her name is Lindsay Boxer, and she's the only female personnel amidst her colleagues in that department. So there's a lot of pressure on her, to not be a typical woman, to not be too emotional, to not to be too feminine. But that's what she tells us because this is in first person POV. We get a POV of the serial killer, in between, but mostly the major period, the person in focus here is Lindsay. And Lindsay, she's from a broken home in the sense that her father left her when she was 13, and her father came to meet her on her mother's death. And her father was a police officer, so she became a police officer. And she's kind of got of this armor around her, against the world and all of that. So she has a partner named Jacoby, and the way she describes Jacoby is somebody that she definitely keeps at arm's length, but still connects with him because he's her partner, the way police works and all of that. There's Jacoby, there's her boss, Roth Mesa. So the first killing happens on the day when she receives a diagnosis from her doctor that she has this disease called Neglis. And necklace is like a cousin to leukemia. This is how they describe it in the book. So it's terminal, but it's in stages as well. So she's in the stage between serious and severe. So her doctor is like, well, you have to take this serious. You need to start having blood transfusions, every week or 3 times a week, and then we have to see if your blood is going to like start creating erythrocytes. But the thing about necklace is that it means like your blood cannot your system is no longer producing red blood cells, and so you start to like when your system is not producing red blood cells, what are you living for? Like you can't receive oxygen from your blood, you can't, you won't be energized and all of that. It's like a slow death. So they said when they transfuse the blood for her, maybe her blood will pick up and start, producing their own cells by themselves, like their own red blood cells by themselves. Anyway, she gets this news from the doctor. She's devastated, only for her to come upon the scene of the first crime by the serial killer. We scene where this bride and the groom that just got married, like they were literally in the hotel after the reception ended in the night, and that's when they were killed by this person. And so many things were left at the scene, and it was also there were no fingerprints at the scene of the crime. There were no fingerprint. The person was very careful, clinical with the man. They stabbed the groom. They stabbed the groom clearly and cleanly through his tux, through his jacket, straight to his heart. And then the person took their time with the bride by feasting her. Can I say that on YouTube? Like feasting her, and the bride put up a struggle, and all that. Then there was some urine sample found at the scene, which they believed was from the groom, that he wet himself in fear and all of that. So all of this was collected. Lindsay was trying to put herself together, she was horrified, she's a human being, as any police is a human being, even though the institution that they represent is evil and whatever. I don't get all of that. But that first scene, we are introduced to other characters. We're introduced to this reporter from the Chronicles. Now the Chronicles is a journal, is a newspaper, what do you call it, newspaper, whatever, that really focuses on all these kind of things in the city, crime, murder, investigation, all of that. And they sent this kind of, she's not a newbie, but she's seen as lesser because first of all she's wayfish, I think. The writer describes her as cherubic at some point. She has a cherubic nose or something. And so like the way she presents, obviously, is like they don't take her seriously at the office, but they slapped this one on her that she should go and get all the details because nobody was entering the hotel. The hotel was cordoned off, and there was a huge crowd. It was a big deal, and he sent her to go and get the details on it. So somehow she managed to get close enough to the crime scene to see what is going on. And then she met Lindsay, but Lindsay didn't know who she was because, as a police officer, you're supposed to not let the whole details of the crime leak into the news and all of that. But somehow Cindy and Lindsay, kind of connect in the bathroom, and she's like, and Cindy does not jump her there, in the sense of she does not go into this bloodthirsty, the typical TMZ style of journalism when they see like vultures, crowding a dead body kind of reporter, those kind of things. Cindy's not like that. So anyway, Lindsay meets Cindy and they kind of connect, they kind of click. Especially in the moments where Lindsay got the news of her diagnosis. She has a sister, but her sister is in another city, and her sister has a life of her own. She feels she doesn't want to encroach over on her sister's life. She also has a best friend named Claire, and Claire is the assistant chief medical examiner of the county of the city, but she's also a woman, and she's not giving her props or giving that promotion to be the actual chief medical examiner because she's a woman, and she's everybody knows Claire is the boss, actually. The man is just a figurehead because he's a man, he's occupying the position and all of that. So you can see the kind of picture that the story is painting for us, that it's a world where the women, we are made to see clearly the women being sidelined by men that they are more or less on the same level of skill and competence as, but not giving their flowers, you get. Because Cindy's case, her boss does not take her seriously and all of that, but she does get the scoop on this first killing, and she goes back to her office, and then she's giving the story, and she's told to get more details on the get, like, right as it unfolds, to keep the public updated. But it's kind of a big deal for her because she has never gotten such a scoop before, gotten such an opportunity. So there's Cindy, there's Lindsay, and there's Claire. Claire is Lindsay's best friend of for years, like since they were, I think, teenagers or young adults till now. Claire is married, she has kids, and Lindsay is divorced, like maybe a few years back. But on this case, because of how high profile the groom and the bride, were, Lindsay's partner Jacoby is switched out for a cup that was assigned to them by the mayor of the city. You get, and this cup that was assigned to them is kind of like a desk cup and all of that. So like he's when brought introduced out Lindsay was introduces Lindsay to Chris Riley. That's the name of this guy from the mayor. She's all God is up, hacks her up. She's like, what do you know? All this kind of thing, like, what do you know? Why is my partner being changed that? Why does the mayor want to hound me and all of that? But either way, she's a good sport. She just lets him tag along. She keeps calling him by his son in Raleigh, and he's like, my name is Chris. So he even tries to warm her up by calling her Linz, and she's like, boxer, please. All of those kind of things, but he doesn't stop. Anyways, the point is, like, the interesting part of the story for me is how um we see we're in the mind of the killer whenever they go for a kill. And it's a man, and the book even starts with him. Philip Campbell does this, he does this, he does this, and then we are made to read how he witness how he feels the gladness in his heart killing these people. Do you get? So the second cue, he traces them to a hotel where they went to have their honeymoon, and he comes in as a limo driver and is like, hey, courtesy of the restaurant, we are giving you a limo ride to the restaurant. And the bride's husband, the groom, is like, I don't think we didn't pay for this, we didn't budget this. Or he said, no, it's free. And like, he keeps on like cajoling them, coerce, like kind of. And the lady, Kathy, the bride, she's so excited. She's like, let's go. And they enter the limo with this strange man. And then this guy drives into an abandoned vineyard, and he listens to them get frisky in the back seat, and he shoots. In the midst of their coupling, he winds down the privacy screen and shoots the groom and kills the bride. Like I said, he enjoys taking his time with the bride. He kills the groom very clinically and all of that. They are in Cleveland, Ohio, because it's so publicized. They make a call to San Francisco PD, and they get Lindsay on the line that, oh, I think you might have your second honeymoon victim here. And she's like, what the hell? Like, I thought it was localized to San Francisco. So that means this person is going anywhere, it could be anywhere, in America, in the country. So she goes with Chris to Cleveland, to Ohio. They've not found the limousine, they've not found the bodies by now, but there was an alarm raised, and because of how sensitive the and peculiar, this kind of killing is, a missing bride and groom will definitely raise like an alarm. Do you get? So she's there with Chris, she's down there with Chris trying to like figure out where to trace these people to, where they could have gone, how they could, and because there was no sign of resistance either. So somehow Cindy shows up in front of Lindsay, and Lindsay is like, oh my god, how do we handle this? How do we stop the press on this? Because it's not yet out. We don't want to let the public be panicked over something that may turn out to be a copycat or just a random missing case. And somehow she connects with Cindy because of how she's connected with Cindy in the past, and now Cindy has been empathetic towards her. She's able to convince Cindy to hold off until they actually get, they actually find this couple, you get. And Cindy, one that somebody that is under pressure from her boss, somehow she just lets it pass. She's like, okay, but when you find the details, when you find this couple, I'll be the first to know. And she's like, yes, I'll give you the entire scoop, And Chris is stunned. Chris is like, since when can you bargain with the press? Like, I did that. It's like, no, this one is different. I think she's different, So by now, Chris has been sending some kind of, not overtures, but he has kind of been an open book, friendly, talking about how he's also divorced with two sons, and how, like, it's just they go for lunch together, the way they talk to each other, the way they express their frustrations and concerns about this case to each other. They kind of You kind of see their relationship growing. You get. And Lindsay had not yet told her best friend Claire, because she had not told anybody, because she feels like if she told people, it would make it more real. But every week she goes to the hospital, her doctor is there with another professional, with another specialist, and they're like, oh, this thing is not getting better. It's like, your case is getting worse. Do you get? And we have to like up your blood transfusions, and at the worst case we have to we have to register you for chemo. And she's like, everything's on her head, she's like out of her mind. But one day, because they're in Ohio and she already told Cindy to hold up, somehow she gets Claire and Cindy, and they go for dinner together, and then Lindsay introduces Cindy to Claire. And the grand plan of Lindsay is that now that Cindy is kind of on her side, she feels like she would get along well with Claire. And she feels like it's also the period where she decides to tell Claire, about her diagnosis. What do you call it? Is it diagnosis or what? About her diagnosis. So the three of them get together and they're having a wonderful time. And after a while, Lindsay has this bright idea that, let three of us just be our own investigative team. Let's call ourselves the Women's Mother Club, where we don't go through official route. All of this is behind, the paper wall of bureaucracy. Like, we're just doing our own personal investigation. Since Claire is handling medical, like the autopsy and the forensics and all of that that they get from the bodies, and Cindy is on the investigative journalist side, she can make research, she can go around, she has much sources and means to do the footwork than Lindsay, and Lindsay is the one at the scene of the crime. You get, so three of them can pull their knowledge together and try to nab this killer. It's interesting because they get some kind of clues at some point, that and then there's one signature of the serial killer, like all serial killers do. The serial killer takes their wedding bands, not the jewelry, they don't steal for them, nothing. The serial killer just takes the wedding bands of the bride and the groom. And Lindsay has not told anyone yet that pivotal fact either. She's like, if at the first crime, the first scene of the crime, she was like, if the second one happens and there's missing bands and it's a serial killer that is on the loose, it's not a one time thing. And so the story is not that hefty. Do you get? Because I don't know who the serial killer is. You get? And serial killer has such a bland name that I've never heard come up in conversation. They are all the characters I've met so far. They were not behaving suspicious. Everybody was just doing investigation. This one was focusing on a disease, and this one was focusing on the job, and I was like, everybody's focusing on their job. So I was like, how am I supposed to be invested in the mystery of who the serial killer is? Because the serial killer goes to the scene of the crime, reads the newspaper, and takes immense pleasure in the way he's being described, in the fear is inspired in the general public at large. He keeps on reiterating to himself that, oh, I'm not like, I feel so good. Before he kills the second couple, he's like, what's the worst thing that could engender fear in people? What's the worst thing I could do that could make people feel like this is the worst type of crime? And it was like, killing them in the act would be so bad, so like, I don't feel particularly intrigued by the serial killer, until they start to piece some things together. At the scene of the crime, the serial killer left a bottle of wine. I don't know wines, I have a whole book I bought to know wine, but I don't know this wine, and it's kind of unique. Now, this story was set in the 2000s or 90s. Like, they said something about something happening in 1995 and just 5 years after. So, like, let's just say it was beginning of the millennium, 2000. And there were no, like, the internet was pretty slow, nobody depended on the internet. Phones were, that phone and landlines, like records. What I want to say, records were kept in archives, folders kept deep in libraries or buildings and all of that. So it is important because it will come up later when they have to, like, dig in. So, like, when I'm saying about the wine, it's like the wine was manufactured in 1989, and it is a stark one of a kind collection, and you have to write your name, register to buy it somewhere. So they are like trying to trace the person that bought it, and there's several people that bought it, but there was a specificity about this wine that they were able to trace some kind of detail, and then the names of the people that got this. It was just one person that got this collection, so Jacoby was on the case tracing. Jacoby obviously felt resentment for not being put front and center in the case and being sidelined by somebody that the mayor assigned, but he was still on good terms with Lindsay. So Jacoby was really like hustling behind the scene, doing the legwork, because there's no internet to get. So there was internet, but it was not that effective like it is today. And today, is it still good? Today, yeah, I don't take over everything. So, like, what are we talking about? So Jacob was doing legwork, hustling, finding different information. So things were piecing together slowly. Also, another thing left at the first scene of the crime was a tux jacket. This tux jacket is not what the groom wore. This tux jacket was somebody else's, and they could trace to the tailor, to the brand. Like, it was cool to read it together. Really like that aspect. Like, in the eras of no internet and high speed information, you get, how did people survive? And I remember that people survived. Like, this book is like, people did survive. People, this is not a callback, this is what's happening. This book was probably published around that period. Oh yes, this. So this book was probably published around that period. Anyways, all those things, all those little things are making sense to me. And then there's Cindy. Cindy is so pivotal to this story. And I think all the women are pivotal. Then another interesting thing about the story is how the writer writes this black woman. And the only black woman in this story is Claire. I in the first take of this video, I expressed a lot of anger and frustrations. It took up more than half of the video. I was like, you know what, let me just because there's something weird about there's always something weird about a man writing a woman, but there's something extra sinister about a white man writing a black man. When first we went to meet Claire, we are told she's black, plain and simple. They were told that she's fat, she has 50 pounds that she does not need. She's described as round, as soft. She's described as she gives these one liners that you think you expect of a typical black person in America. And then the man never stops with the roundness. When she's at home, she's looking at herself in the mirror, contemplating on how sad finding out about Lindsay's disease makes her. She's describing herself as, oh, I know I'm not beautiful as the typical standards of beauty. And it's like, oh my God, can this man give it a rest? He's more or less calling her ugly. And it's like saying Claire should call herself ugly by herself, looking at herself in the mirror. And then he says she's round, she's soft, she's this. Like, he doesn't stop with that description of Claire. It was just off-putting, it was annoying, it was like, so this, and it made sense for its time. You get, like, although now people still talk like that though, but for the time it was not, they were not even trying. Like, this man didn't even try to give her, he never described the skin color of Lindsay's, he never described the skin color of anybody else in the story, but feeling the need to exaggerate that this woman is brown, this woman is round, this woman is fat. It feels too pointed, it feels too icky, it feels like she's been ordered, in the story. Meanwhile, she's a pivotal part of the story. She's the chief medical examiner, more or less. She's the bestie of the main character, and she's pivotal to the final clue that puts the nail on the coffin of the killer. So, like, what are we doing here? Why did you do this to this person? Like, we cannot escape these descriptions of her. Very irritating. I don't want to rehash it because the story is pointless. It made me cry too. Like, you are so fucking annoying. You do all this and you make me cry. So Lindsay, as much as it was icky, listen, like reading his description of their emotions, the way they saw life, the way they behaved in their own personal lives, like, I kind of followed along with her falling in love with Chris Riley. It was inevitable. Like, once you hear there's a new guy coming in, he's soft, his hand is like, it's inevitable somewhat. Anyways, so the killer goes on to kill the third. They find the body of the second couple, and the second couple, the killer has left a very massive clue. He pushed his face in this woman's private, and he left few strands of his beard inside her tract. And then when Claire was going over it, the body, she saw the hair and she saw that it was red. It was red, and it was very different from her husband's hair, and it was also different from hair from head. It was hair from a beard. So they were able to establish that this killer had red beard, and they started calling him Red Beard. And the first time I was reading it, I didn't get it, but the second time it was like, wow, Captain Red Beard has no fear. I don't know if everybody watched that cartoon, but like, yes, there's a cartoon called Captain Red Beard, and they kept on calling him Red Beard. At some point, they were calling him Captain Red Beard. Even it was it was funny. I don't know if Captain Red Beard was out by 2000s, but it was just interesting to see that. Anyways, the killer starts stalking his next victim, and the thing that was very scary about reading from the killer's perspective was the fact that he had a Rolodex of brides. My wedding is coming up, and he had their contact, he had their details, and everything. So they finally traced that they finally got a witness that somebody was standing staring and at Kathy, that's the second bride, the day she was having her bridal fitting. And the killer keeps using words like, oh, she's precious, she's just a child, she's innocent, she's pure. Oh no, the groom has soiled her, spoiled her, she's no longer perfect, and all of that. She's like this, she's like that. Then the third killing happens. And when the third killing happens, it doesn't happen in the typical fashion. This one, the killer does not wait to ambush them at the hotel or on a getaway or at dinner. He just waits for them to take a break from the reception. They go into the bathroom, like the groom goes first to the bathroom to smoke a bong, and it's like giving eye to the bride to come and meet him. So she comes to meet him, and when she comes to the bedroom, as she opens the door expecting to see her husband, he's already dead, and the killer shoots her. And the killer shoots her and puts her in a very vulgar position where it's as if she's, blowing her husband. She put his face in his crotch, and it's very gory because she's bloodied up. The man is bloodied up. It's so messy, and it happens in the bathroom. And they call the police, and this is another state as well. So they're like, okay, this is insane. We have to find. So they find a CCTV footage of him avoiding the camera, because this wedding took place in a very popular hall, like the Hall of Fame hall, because the parents of the couple are music heads. They are like music executives, so they are rich, they are popular, and everybody coming, there's camera, there's security, but the security is not enough, to fish out somebody that is determined to kill another person. Anyway, they catch a small glimpse of him. He's facing it from the camera, but you can see the beard. There's no color obviously, but we can see his frame. So now they can get a police sketch. There's even a witness from the very first wedding that comes forward to the police and describes the guy. Says she saw him and he felt out of place. Because when you find out about weddings, as very crowded and noisy and hectic as they are, everybody sort of knows who came for the wedding. Those people that didn't come for a wedding but are there at the reception, maybe for food, maybe for whatever reasons, are going to be noticed regardless. Yeah. So things are coming together for these people. Now, the thing about this third person is that there was um something different about this bride. This bride, she was actually still cheating on her husband until the very end. And she was not cheating on her husband in that typical sense. She had a relationship with an older man from 5 years ago, where she met him at an event, and since then she has been tied to this man in a sort of toxic, abusive kind of relationship. His way of having sex was different. His way of It was not your typical, it was not even BDSM, it was just toxic. He liked controlling her, he liked calling her at his will, like he had her at his beck and call. And she even moved away from San Francisco to this state, which I don't remember the state anymore, to escape from him. That's when she settled down and finally made a life as an agent working for this music whatever, and then she met her husband and all of that. But the funny thing is, like, everybody knew. When I mean everybody, her close friends knew, and a very close friend and her sister knew that she was still seeing this man right up to the very end. And they were not like, okay, let's trace this man. But nobody wants to be forthcoming about it, because how would it feel to say, oh, the bride and the groom were killed by the bride's, ex toxic lover, and the bride was also cheating on the groom until the very end. It doesn't give the family a good name, a good look, and it kind of reduces the sympathy people would have for the murdered bride. So the family were very reluctant, but somehow Lindsay was persistent, and she eventually she was able to convince it. The writing was like, oh, she used her, woman to woman to connect with the mother of the girl to speak up, and she eventually spilled that daughter was involved with this popular, and she said, oh, it's so popular, so popular, it will break the news, it's so popular. And she's like, don't worry, we'll handle it in the way we can. And she finally spills that it's a popular author named Nicholas Jenks. And would you know that Nicholas Jenks has red beard? He matches the frame of the person caught on CCTV as well. Nicholas Jenks, the moment she's coming up to that conclusion that it's Nicholas Jenks, Jacob is coming up with the conclusion that the person that bought that case of wine in so year was also Nicholas Jenks. So like everything was piecing together, and Nisi was so happy that finally she can put the nail this, this mofo. And she goes to the DA assistant, which is a woman, Jill something. She's a woman, and she's trying to tell Jill that, see, this is what we have. And she's like, see, all this one you are going to do is just going to make him know how to cover his business. You have to give me something solid. I don't just want here say, okay, wine, okay, the talks is also made. Yeah, Jacob also found out that the talks was Nicholas Jenks's order and all of that. So like all of this is circumstantial. You've not given me any real thing. What about the murder weapon? That's 9mm gun that they used to shoot, that the person used to shoot the second couple. We've not seen it yet. She was not like, okay, I need a search warrant. And this was like, I need a search warrant to go to this house so I can search for it. Say, I can't give you a search warrant if you don't give me something solid. And so they now go to fill up the guy. Roth Mesa, her boss, is like, guy, this person is a very big public figure. and he is. So we can't just approach him anyhow. We have to do this carefully. So we don't lose him. He specifically says the word give him the VIP treatment. How did we find out Nicholas Jenks' connection to Kat? To I think her name is Kathy. The other ones I don't. I've mixed up the price, but it's like three. How we found it out is because we are told that um, she met this person at an event, and Cindy they start to meet. The women's mother club start to meet regularly, and in their next meeting all of them drop the information that they have, and Cindy is like, you know what, before we go, um before we push this family, like let me check something first. So she goes to the where bride 3 was working for the first time ever, and the event that happened that connected these people together. Do you get? Because they kept on emphasizing this. The best was like, I can't tell you his name, but I know he's a very popular person. In fact, it's the chronicles where she worked that captured that press event that day, that year. So she goes to the archive in her building and she starts to look for hours at night, and then finally she comes upon the picture of this lady with this bride too, with sorry this bride, the third bride, with the man, and it's Nicholas Jenks. So Jacob is telling Lindsay his findings, the talks and the wine. Cindy is coming to show her pictures that it is Nicholas Jenks she met with. Then she now finally calls the mother to kind of confirm that, just tell me because I already know, or something like that. And the mother is like, well, blah blah blah. Eventually the mother says yes, it's Nicholas Jenks. So all of those things is what made her go to jail. But she's like, it's not enough. I need something solid. So Chris is tagging along. Oh, their relationship is growing normally. So they decide to go to pay a visit to Nicholas Jenks, and he has his mansion, blah blah blah. So when they get in the house, they meet his wife. She's the second wife. She's way young. She's blonde. She's small. She's a young girl, and the man is way older than her. And it's obvious they have a toxic dynamic. But like, something about abusive men is that when they face up to a woman that does not give a shit about who they are, and a woman that will literally knock their teeth out, they always feel so threatened. Because he even tries to, at some point when Lindsay's asking him questions, bro, where were you so day when this woman was getting married? Where were you so day in Cleveland? Were you in Cleveland? Were you in Hawaii? All those kind of things, yeah. So he's like coming up with smooth answers, and he's like, I hope this is not an official question. Like, no, we're just asking questions. So he's like, if it's official, let me call my lawyer. She's like, I don't think you need to call your lawyer. Either way, he's kind of being rude, and she's not having it. She's not letting his insult and his jibes get to her, because he's looking down on her saying she's a woman. Like I said, the theme of this book is how the sexism and the misogyny very present in society. Both this Nicholas Jenks is sexist and is misogynistic. Her job, sexism, misogyny is there, and the women that she's doing the mother club with also experience sexism and misogyny. So like, of course, Jenks is going to try to like hit her. I don't know why. Like, there was something provocative that she said, and he tried to swing on at her, but she like dodged it and knocked him to the ground. And he was like, I'm calling my lawyers. I'm calling my lawyers. She's like, good. We'll be seeing you. So she leaves the house with Chris at her side, and he takes out his frustration on Chessie. That's his wife. She's new. She's the second wife. The second wife. This is frustration on Chelsea, and at some point he's telling her to bark like a dog. It's just really nasty stuff, and you get a picture of what he did, to this Kathy girl, the third bride that was murdered. Like, he's very nasty. He locks her in the closet and says she's a dog, she's a puppy, she should bark because that's what she wants. She wants to be a dog. Like, he's very degrading, very into the degrading stuff without consent. So it's not degrading stuff, it's just abuse, emotional, mental, physical, because he hits her as well. Then Lindsay has the bright idea that since Jill is so, feisty, and she's like she likes Jill, she's like, I want Jill to come and join my mother club. She's going to the hospital, she's taking all this transfusion, no positive result yet. Jill joins the mother club. The beard is what they used to nail Nicholas Jenks actually. his beard was found in the bride's body. So they matched it. They asked him for his DNA sample, and he matched it. And actually, they had already matched his DNA to the beard found in the second bride, but they needed something to tie him to the third bride. That's why Lindsay was asking for a search warrant. She needed to find either the murder weapon or something conclusive that would, make him be in the same state at the time at the same time the murder was being committed, you know, on the third couple. So the picture that Cindy found was conclusive enough to tie him as being connected, to the third bride. And also, when he was questioned at his home, he could not provide an alibi for where he was. In fact, his flight record showed so many calls between himself and the bride, even up to the moment of her wedding. Also, he was at the same state for I was at the same state as her when the wedding was occurring, where the wedding was occurring. So everything was enough to time to be brought in for booking. Before that, they want to know how Jen's personal life, after leaving the house that day, they want to know how Jen's personal life is. So they said they have to be somebody that was close to him, and they found out he has a first wife, Joanna Wade. And they go to meet Joanna, and Joanna is living her life, she's doing well for herself. She filed she filed a she filed a divorce claim against him, but she later dropped the suit. She filed this abuse this thing at the police, but she filed a police report for physical abuse, but eventually she dropped it as well. So they want to meet her and ask her, like, why did you drop it? What's going on? What was the history to people? What was Nicholas Jenks like? And she started to talk. Then she now says that wait, oh, that if it's about the killing, there is something about Jenks that you need to know, that he wrote a book, his very first book, called the something something murders, and the main character was what? Get this, Philip Campbell. And Philip Campbell went around killing what? Brides and grooms. And it ended in the arrest. So she was like, if you want to ask her, like if you're asking her opinion, she feels like Nicholas Jenks is capable of doing those things that, is in the news. So they say thank you. But they have to find a copy of this book, because obviously nothing is online. You get there are I think till now people still save like their first edition of their books, to copyright it from possible future plagiarists and all of that. So the first edition of his book will be in a public domain, a public location. But to access it would be the problem. If they're able to access it and find the book, they're able to get details on the killer and how and his motivations and all of that. So Lindsay is stuck. She doesn't know what to do. And Cindy's like, you know what? I know where to go for it, because and they go to meet his first agent, because after he made it, made like millions of dollars in his first book that went, bestsellers and all of that. He dropped his first agent, and his agent has a grudge against him, Frank. So they go to meet Frank after meeting Joanna, and Joanna is like, Frank, sorry, and Frank is like, eh, that Nicola Jenks is an asshole. He doesn't know about the killings, but he's very mean spirited. There's something sinister about him, all of that. So they're like, okay, can we see the first publication of the first manuscript of his book, that first book? And he's like, oh, I don't have it. This asshole, he took it from me. He took it to so place, like he's probably kept it somewhere. So Frank cannot offer them any more information than that. So they start to think, like, where can this book be? Would it be in so place, no copyright and all of that? And Cindy starts to think that, wait, I know where I can find it. She starts to think that a fledgling writer, a novice writer, wouldn't have the money to really register for that copyright protection, because it costs thousands of dollars. Instead, they'll put it in a place that also provides the same protection but cheaper, which is what the archive at the library, something. There's something like that. So because she knows that, because that's where she dropped some of her own first writings as well. So she goes to the library, but she doesn't have access. She has his social security number, from the police files. That's why they are in the women's mother club. You get, they bypass all those bureaucracy. So she has access to social security, and she's like, that she starts to tell the librarian that please she needs to see this document, because this manuscript, because the person died and his family's gift, blah blah blah. And And then the writing describes her as having this cherubic pleading face, and the librarian takes pity on her and she gives her access to check. But the librarian does not know that she's going to take the book out. So they just want to confirm that the book was there. Do you get? So Cindy now confirmed that the book was there, and she called Lindsay. And Lindsay came and showed the librarian her badge that this is police business, and the librarian backed off. So they took the copy of that book and they took it with them and they started reading it and all of that and all that. So like the mothers club, Jill is now part of the women mothers club. So Jill is now part of them, and like they have all of this and they're like, okay, now time to kill Jenks, not literally but like to put him away forever. By that time, this person Lindsay finally feels like okay, she can let go, she can tell Chris about her diagnosis, because she has not told Chris yet. She has told Claire, she has told Cindy, and she has told Jill, and all of them really like, were sympathizing with her, and they like encourage her in their own way. Jill was like, I'm a survivor as well, all these type of things that you can't control. The least you can do is to fight it, and I trust that if you fight it, that you can get, past it. Do you understand? So Jill now showed her own cutting scars. You understand? And it was intense. All of them were like crying, and she felt like she was no longer alone in the world. She no longer had to be alone. So she felt like it was time to tell Chris. So she by then she had already kissed Chris. They've already touched, but she's like, I can't. So um then the euphoria of the case being broken open, the progress of the case, Chris eventually comes over to visit her in her house, and they sleep with each other, because that's how all these 2000s novels are. Like when you have sex, that's when you know that your feelings are real. That's when you know people are connected, which is a lie. But let's just let the story be what it is. So after that happens, and this happens with the case, and they put this guy, like they're preparing for trial proceedings and all of that. They Chris invites her to his boat house or something in the countryside, and they both go for 2 days. And as they are there, they are making love, they are kissing, they are eating, they are fishing. It's fun. She now decides to tell you, and the way this is written is so corny, so annoying. I don't know, should I read it? I don't want to read it. It's annoying. So she's like, I have to tell you something, Chris. And Chris is like, what is it? Like, don't worry. She was like, shh, that stupid move where you put your hand on somebody's lips to like shush them, because you're in the middle of saying something important and you love them too much. You don't want to shut them up, but you want to like calmly shush, and you're like, shh. That's what she does to him. And it's like, I want to throw the book into the dustbin. Like, what am I reading? Eventually she comes out with it. She tells him, and she's like crying, and like, I'm sorry, like, don't worry, we'll get through this. And I'm just so icky. I'm like, hey, let's go, let's see what happened. So somehow Lizzie starts to get this niggling feeling that something is not just right. Like there's something off about the case. Like the way it just came together. The tuxedo be left behind, the beard, the wine. Like, why did the serial killer leave all those things behind, but they didn't leave like something like fingerprints? Why would he? It seemed as if the case was being set up for the police, to come in and feast and like take what he had offered them. And she didn't like the way it made her feel. So she started like slightly questioning her girlies, her women. Like she's like, I think there's something off about this case. And they're like, don't start. Don't start. Everything is perfect. We have it in the bag. Actually, Jill, who knows that this is a career breaking, everything is always career breaking for all these days. If you learn this case, if everything is career breaking, there's no case you can just let go of and be free with that will not destroy your career. Everything I've ever seen about this DA, procedural lawyer nonsense case is always this can make or break your partnership in the firm. You might not get to be an associate. You might not make partner if you lose this case. You might not make this. You never the end. I beg, I hate all those kind of jobs, eh? Anyway, she's like, this can make and break like her career. People will not take her serious again, which I understand, but still, I beg, you're already the DA, like you're already the DA's assistant, like relax. It's not that, like, relax. And Jill is described as somebody that she doesn't have kids with her husband, and then they now wrote it like, but something was obviously missing in her life. Children are missing in her life, Abby. 2000s were just the pit for women. So Jill is like, no, but they're like, she's like, she will calm down, she won't hasten the case, she won't expedite the case, and she won't be able to stop anything from happening. So Lindsay now said that the way Jenks struck at me in his home, he struck at me with his left hand, but the killer has been doing all these things with his right hand. Like it doesn't matter. They're like, hand is not a real factor, a real definer. As long as we have other things, the beard, well, that's the main thing. And she's like, oh, she's now begging Claire. Like she's more or less convincing all of them that she convinces Claire, Cindy, and Jill to just give her, like we should just like they should just look over everything again. You know, they might have missed something. That something is just not right. And the last time she spoke to Jenks, he was really insistent that it was innocent and this was a setup. You know, and like it just she's like, you know, you can feel the story ticking on you, like the clock of the story ticking on you that is about to come to an end. I mean, I was very happy because like let this roller coaster end. I want to get off, please. But his case is being like moved forward, you know, like due process is still happening, you know. So he has to go for a hearing. So he's been taken from the jail to the hearing, and he's in an armored truck with officers and all of that. And there's one in a truck in front, a truck at the back, taking him to because he's a serial killer now. So as they are going along the road, an earthquake hits. On this particular day, Lindsay went to the hospital and another doctor was there, another specialist was there with her regular doctor, and she was not even more scared. She was like, hey, yeah, it's not getting better. Like how much worse, like what worse news could be coming up, because she also had an episode before then where she, you know, got dizzy, felt intense nausea, and was like she had to be held by Chris for a while to calm down, to be stable before she got herself. So she was like, oh my god, something was, something was. And then they now told her that, well, we have good news for you. Your blood cell count has started rising. It seems like your blood has decided to start creating its own, producing its own erythrocyte. So you can, you know, like you can get. So she's like, this week I felt even worse than usual. Like, yeah, that's the sign of that. That's the sign of it working. So if we keep up at this pace, you will not need chemo. You're actually getting better. You're on the mend. And she was so happy. And she wanted to tell somebody, she wanted to tell Chris and all of that. She called Chris to the house, like let them celebrate by having sex and a meal. So after that, she was like, she wanted to tell Chris the good news. And then Jacoby called her, and it was on a code that, you know, was an emergency code. And she was like, what's going on? And Jacoby said, worst, Jenks has fled. Jenks has escaped. So now there's mayhem everywhere. Before now, Claire called Lindsay the night before this day, and she said she found something in the lab that, do you guys remember the urine I was talking about? I knew that urine would come in handy. So the urine sample that they all assumed it was the dead groom in the first thing, but they also found urine in the second scene of the crime, in the limousine, and it was kept randomly, like nobody took notice of it. But she noticed it, and she started going through it, and she was like, urine will definitely tell if you can really tell if urine is from a man or a woman. How did they get to the woman aspect? Oh, I have to narrate something before all this. So before all this, as you usually get like insight into the killer's head, there was a scene where the killer sat down at the mirror, you know, like Nicholas Jenks was busy like thinking, who could possibly do this to me? Do they think they have me? Like they can't have me. I'm not the one. And then it now translates into the serial killer's head, and he was like, oh, that's what Nicholas Jenks would think right now that he's locked up in jail. And as this serial killer was like narrating whatever his thoughts, he started removing, you see the description of him removing the beard, him removing the wig, him removing the contact, him removing everything, and then is exposed to us that the person shakes out her hair and she's herself once again. So we are like we come upon this plot twist that the serial killer was actually a woman, and the woman knew Nicholas Jenks and had a grudge against him. So like, which woman will have a grudge against him? Is it Joanna Wade? When Claire found out that the urine belonged to a woman, do you get? She now told Lindsay. Lindsay started to overthink that, maybe it's Joanna Wade. Oh, Joanna Wade knows all these harsh exercises. Maybe Joanna Wade can take in like how many women can take down a man? How many size bigger than them? How many women can like the woman has to be somebody that is very fit, very huge, very big, all of that kind of thought process that Lindsay was having. All of this was before she got the good news from her doctors, yeah. So she was like, it's a woman. So when they gather together in the women's club, Claire tells everybody. So everybody's like, okay, this changes things. This really changes things. Because urine, the urine is from a woman because they found candida albicans, aka yeast, in the urine. Like Claire found it in the urine. And then there were also red blood particles in the urine. That's like someone that was just menstruating or finished menstruating, it still flows in the urine. So like a man cannot produce such kind of urine. So anyways, now they are convinced that okay, it's a woman, and they all like Lindsay is convinced that it's Joanna Wade. It's Joanna, but me, from the first moment, I already suspected Chelsea, because that kind of thing where you are thrown a red herring, by the main character or the story, because Lindsay will keep on telling us that the exercise that Joanna is doing, she can take down a man. Nobody else can do that. And she's the only woman that has a grudge against him because he was supposed to, like, after putting him through school, through law school, through everything, with her meager salary and everything, finally now published a book after their divorce, and he got millions. So, and she was not entitled to it. So she went to court to sue for future claims, but she didn't really get more than $5,000. So obviously she should have a grudge. So this is using that logic to run around with these thoughts. I mean, I'm just like, it's not Joanna. It's not Joanna. She keeps on, like, she kept on insisting. And then the earthquake happens. Back to the present time, earthquake happens. Jenks has fled the scene. He says he knows who the killer. He now calls Lindsay and says, police, officer, blah 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 blah. Anyways, so Lindsay's like, just calm down. Like, I believe you. I know somebody's setting you up, and I know the killer. And he was like, so do I. And he got the call, and she's like, what do you need? So now, with this information, she has to she goes to the police station. She cannot tell Chris her good news about the recession of the disease. So, but she's like, after. Anyways, everything is high strong right now. Yeah, everybody, all the police units now are interested in finding Jenks. So she's like, so because she's the lead detective on the case, she now radios everybody that nobody should shoot Jenks. She doesn't explain why. She just says nobody should shoot Jenks because there's no time. Everybody wants to find this serial killer on the loose. You get, so all units are deployed, and it was on the bridge it happened. The police officer that was carrying him was impacted immediately. So, and the earthquake rocked the chains loose from the thing on the vehicle. So he was free. His hands were free to run around. So he left and all of that. So anyways, he's running around. She's running around. That's Lindsay with Chris. So they decide to split up. Decide that okay, Lindsay is convinced that it's Joanna. Me, I'm like, people should go and check on Chelsea. People should go and check on Chelsea. They decided to split up. They said, okay, they said Chris, and they see, because the person is still wearing the disguise of Nicholas Jenks. The news of him being released was like a worldwide, like it was a nationwide release. Like everybody be aware, serial on the loose. And so the person that was framing him put on that mask again to try to kill, to try to like direct attention back to Nicholas Jenks, that even though he's on the loose, a death happened. So that means he's the killer. That kind of thing, like putting two plus two together in the public's head. So the person is wearing the disguise, and they are both watching over Chris and Lindsay. They are both watching over Joanna's apartment, and they're deciding whether to go or not. Then they now see somebody with Jenks form running down, and they're like, is that not Jenks? And they see the Jenks it's himself coming, and they see his face and everything. They're like, that's Jenks too. So who is he chasing after? So this person decides to split up. Lindsay says, she says, Chris says, don't worry, go and check on Joanna. Let me go and check. Let me follow these guys. And is this moment where Lindsay feels like, oh, something bad has already happened. So that's the Joanna's apartment, still thinking that Joanna will probably not be there because she's out, and Nicholas is chasing her, Jenks is chasing her. Goes into the house, the apartment. She doesn't see anyone, and she checks the bathroom, and there's Joanna in a pool of her own blood. Her neck was slashed, and she's dead. And she's like, oh my fucking god, Oh my fucking god, I get it. I know who it is now. She now realized it in that moment. Ugh. Anyway, she now starts chasing after where Chris went. She already radios Chris, but Chris does not reply. She's scared because Chris is the only one chasing two people, and she has already called for backup. And she's like, "Where is the back? Where are the backup units now? Like, why is Chris chasing them on his own?" So she starts running in the direction that Chris followed those guys. So she follows them and she sees Chris behind a pillar, and he's propped up and is inside. And she's like, why is Chris inside now? Like, Chris should hide. So she runs to him to try to like push him inside, but as she touches him, she comes away with blood, and she's shaking and she's scared. And Chris wakes up and he's like, "Oh, you're here. Don't worry, you got this, you got it." And she's like, "Chris, you have to hold on. You have to wait. Let me call." She's like, "No." He's like, "No, don't call in. Like, don't go to call help. Don't go to call for help. Follow these guys. You get? I'll be here when you come out." And she leaves him and she runs and she's like, "Where's the bag?" She keeps on calling EMS. She keeps over and over and again as she's pursuing, chasing them. Then she sees the two of them facing down themselves. Chelsea is standing. She has removed the wig. Her hair is in full display. And Jenks on the other side. They're both facing each other. And Jenks is speaking to her, saying blah blah blah. She's like, "Jenks, like, you know that I can kill you, yeah?" And he's in shock. He's like, "How, Chelsea? You?" I even thought it would be like, he was in shock. He didn't expect it from Chelsea. So she was like, you know, what will make this thing okay? She tells when Lindsay comes, she tells Lindsay to back off. And she's talking to Jenks. And Lindsay's like, "Put your gun down, put your weapon down." But she's talking to Jenks that, "Jenks, you know how this would be okay if you'd complete this act of sacrifice for me. You have to swallow these rings. So I know that you value the sanctity of our marriage." Like, she's at that point, she's not mentally stable anymore. She's just, you know, she's insane because throughout the whole killings, she keeps on narrating as a serial killer. She keeps on doing as if she's the one killing. Well, she's the one killing, but she's believing that this guy she put on is an alter ego. You get, is an alter ego, and it's not like she's removed from the killing. But in this moment where her disguise is off and Jenks is in front of her and police is chasing her, it can scramble someone that's already on a precarious edge, can scramble their brain. So Jenks takes the first pair of rings and he actually swallows it. And as about to take the second one, Lindsay just shoots um Gelly, shoots Chelsea, and she shoots her like two times or something, and she dies. Do you get? And then Jenks is just there, like trying to breathe and all of that. And then she runs back. Lindsay runs back to meet Chris. And the way it's described is just so heartbreakingly painful. EMS had already crowded him and they were lifting him up. And she said, but by the time she held his hand, she already knew he was dead. And it was, I was just crying. I was like, why now? Why Chris? Like, these guys were corny as hell, but why Chris? Why Chris? It was just so painful. I didn't like it. So final arc, everybody, the whole thing is cleared up. Chelsea is discovered as the killer, blah blah blah. And now that she's on the mend, she couldn't even get to tell Chris her good news, which was so fucking painful. She was really believing that she was going to die before him, and she was so scared to tell him, and she was falling in love with him because she didn't want to lose everything. She didn't want to lose it. She was being selfish in her own way. And now seeing that he even died before her. It was also painful to reach her. Anyways, she doesn't know how to go on. And all her friends, Claire, Cindy, Jill, they're like holding her, telling her that if she kills herself now, to be an insult to Chris's memory, because like why? You know, after Chris has encouraged her about her illness and she has even gotten a clearance from the doctor that she's on her way to recovery. So if she now kill herself, like what will be the point? But it's still hard to go on. She meets Chris' family at the burial and they're all nice. His ex-wife is like, he told me about you. I think you're wonderful. He would have loved this, and I think I want you to be part of the family. So when they call for the family, she's amongst them with his sons. And he's also sad, they do all this police salute. So, a cop, the gunshots, the everything, the flying of the jets, whatever. So she just decided that she will just have to take it one day at a time, you know. So she's in her apartment and she's trying to, that's the epilogue. As an apartment, just trying to pass the time, pass the evening. Like the story, the beginning of the book starts with a prologue where she's on the edge of her windowsill and she's about to jump, and she's all about regrets that she can't take it. But her dog, she has a dog, Martha, comes to the window and starts barking at her. Like this dog start barking at her, like wondering why she's in such a position, and because of the dog, now in the epilogue, we now see why that scene exists, and how she was stalked off the ledge by her dog. So she's in her house, she's just being, sad and all of that. And somebody knocks on the door. She opens the door and she sees Nicholas Jenks, and she's like, what's they go on? Why are you here? Because she doesn't like Nicholas. After all, he's still an abusive piece of shit. She's like, why are you here? It's like, ha ha ha. Do you know that this has all been my plan? I even put Chelsea up to it, but I didn't know that she'll have the guts to double cross me with Joanna and plan it all. After all, I'm the one that put everything in her head, even the story. I put it all in her head. I'm the one that programmed her, I'm the one that made her go around killing people because I wanted to satisfy that thing in my story. I wanted to see if it could be a possibility. And she managed to put me away, and I was very, very excited that she had the skills to do that. You get, until you came along and you ruined everything. So he's trying to, as he's speaking, he's strangling her. She kicks him off. She's trying to run away. He's hitting her. Eventually, she makes it into the room, and he's like, now it will be your time to die. When you die, nobody will ever suspect that it was me. You'll be the only one that knew that I did this. Like, kind of like this villain monologue he was having. And she's like, so he's rushing at her with a knife to stab her. And she's like, Jenk, stop. Jenk, stop right there. And he thinks she's just saying it for mouth's sake. He doesn't know that she has her own gun under her bed where she's actually laying. So she pulls out the gun, releases it from the safety, and shoots him 3 times. And that was very, very satisfying to me. But it was also icky because it was like, why did you just add on this thing? Like, I don't think this add on was necessary. It's like the man wanted to give us this, the author wanted to give us the satisfaction of say the satisfaction of killing a bad guy. Do you get, like, yeah, Chelsea was the villain, but a man put her up to it. I know this book is centered around women for women, so women power is like killing the abusive guy. It's like, why does that for women's power by you not describing a woman by her color and her fatness every other few sentences? Let's start from there. Let's start from you not telling us how Cindy's face is so terrible and you can get her anything she wants or something. Like, let's start from those really little things before we start all this killing men to prove that we are feminist or you support women and all of that. So that's this first to die. That's the book. That's the book. I'm so happy that at least something came out of it. I was able to make a video. And I wonder if you guys, like, some people actually enjoy this kind of pop pop detective kind of thing. I feel like this is just pop detective stories. Like, it's not even Sherlocky, it's just pop detective. The mystery was interesting in the part where I realized that somebody was framing him, and also the part where he was a famous person. Was like, it can't be this kind of feeling of betrayal. Like, it's some rando. You get that is not connected with the story at all. It's just be as if he just picked a killer off the street to fit his narrative, but it fits the book. It fits the story, it fits the setting. I hate the book. I hate that I hate that it made me cry over Chris. I hate that it had me go through this corny, cringy romance, montage, because they even had moments where they were at a baseball game, and they went to the bathroom and they had sex or something like that, and it was just, I didn't read it. I was just like, ha, flip, all the old kissing, flip, all the old declarations of love, flip. I didn't read it. Like, please, I've paid my dues in full. When I was a child, I was reading all this kind of things. I was like, I thought that I had to read it because a book now. But at this point in my life, no, I will not stress my brain cells reading, stuff like this. Like, actually cringy into the detailed, mess of love and romance like this, I'm not interested. I have focus on the meat of the book, which is the murder mystery plot, the serial killing plot, and all of that. So, anyways, what do you think about this book? Do you guys have any James Patterson in your collection? Do you guys even buy James Patterson? Do you even know James Patterson? Do you even know James Patterson? And if you do, tell me your experience with him in the comments. Tell me what you thought about this book. It was just, I don't know if I did a good job of this reading vlog, but anyways, it's done, it's done. And I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, I'll see you. Bye bye.